When you think about the two things that I talk about is you have to be selfish, and you can't be humble. There is a time to be humble, but sorry guys, but my language. So are we okay? Occasional swear.
All good.
Fuck being humble. If you really want to be a champion, you can't be humble. You need to be the opposite. Right.
Yes. I heard Israel accept an award, and he literally said those words. He accepted an award, and he said, "In New Zealand, we have Paul Poppy syndrome. We need to get it out of us."
Correct.
Because you can't be a leader, you can't be an inspiration, you can't be an elite athlete and feel bad because other people are going to see you and start taking you down.
The Connekt Coaching, Unplugged.
Good morning, everyone. This is Callum and Connor with Unplugged, number 25, with David Niethe from New Zealand. We have been following David for many, many years. David is absolutely one of the top peak performance mental coaches in the world. And welcome to the podcast. I'll let Callum give the world a little bit of rundown on who you are, David.
Thanks, Connor. David, great to have you here. David Niethe is New Zealand's leading mental performance coach, guest speaker, corporate coach, and high performance coach to many of the high performers, athletes, not just in New Zealand, but around the world. A mental performance coach, and getting the mental edge is Dave's specialty. His approach is unique in his delivery. He works with well-respected business owners.
All right, big picture. Dave's a legend. He's been in the field for a long time, peak performance. He's trained some of New Zealand's top athletes. And Cal and I have watched and really enjoyed watching the journey of you grow. And over the years, when Callum and I were in the NLP industry, directly in the NLP industry, every single year, I used to get an email from someone who you had inspired to build and grow, to be a better person, to be a better athlete, and they would contact me and come along and learn NLP. So our relationship has gone back 20 years, David. Yourself and Callum, 10 years. And whenever one of your clients and one of the legends you've worked with is on show or on the major stage, honestly, Callum and I are going, that's a win. That's a win for NLP. That's a win for David and New Zealand. So we are stoked to have you here. Welcome. So David, I mean, you've created, not that your intention was to create an incredible name for yourself in the sporting world, but you've just kept consistent with what you're doing, and the results speak for themselves. So, can you share a little bit about how on earth you got into this world, and what got you onto the path of looking into someone else and thinking, I'm going to make that person better?
Okay, so maybe we can start with how I got into this for myself first. And that was originally, I got involved in Strongman.
Cool.
And so I was pulling trucks and whatnot. But one of the things that obviously you have to entertain is whether or not you want to go on drugs. And there was no way I was going to jab my ass. So I had to go and find, so if I wasn't going to do that, the only thing that I had left was in the mental realm. So from there, I went and researched what the Russians were doing. Ironically, they were doing drugs. But I noticed that they were doing a lot of work on hypnosis.
Right.
So I went and looked into hypnosis, and from there backed into NLP. This is probably going back in 94, 95, 96. And so I got involved and really was fascinated with NLP, just the mind in general. And I started reading piles of books. I did my first certification. I did two. I did practitioner twice. I did it with a lady, and then I did it with a guy from America, Dr. William Horton.
Oh, William Horton. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then from there, I went and finally found TAD and went over to Sydney to do my master's.
Yeah.
And I think that was the foundation. I think NLP provides the most powerful foundation for understanding in human nature human psychology. And people say to me, what's the difference between, psychology and NLP? And, I've always explained to them, it's almost like you have a high performance vehicle. Psychology will tell you all the componentry within the engine and how it works. But NLP will teach you how to drive it fast.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that, I think, for me, is the easiest way to explain what we can do as coaches.
And at that point, were you seeing clients already, or like were you
Yeah, so
coaching in the
I-
sporting world?
Well, how it all sort of came about is that when I was training, I had a lot of guys wanting to train with me because they had this, I had this energy and this motivation to push the limits. And through that, people go and say, how do you fucking get like that, man? How do you push like you do? And I started working with a few mates, and then I kind of realized, because, at that point I was a blue collar worker. I was a printer. I was miserable in the job. And it just came to me like, this is my destiny. I'm destined to be a coach, a trainer.
Yeah.
And I undertook that. And it was a transition. I mean, I didn't have, as a printer, I wasn't earning a lot of money. It was a big struggle, even to get over to see Tad's. We made a lot of sacrifices and sold stuff just to afford it, but I guess when you suffer like that, you certainly extract the value out of the training because you want it so badly,
Yeah.
And so I used to work at night and on the weekends while I was still sort of working as a printer. And eventually it got to a point where something had to give. And, the old saying, if you want to walk on water, first you got to step out of the boat. And I went full time into coaching. And for the first two years, it was challenging. We certainly relied a lot on, Wattie's baked beans. It didn't have fancy steak and whatnot.
Yep.
But it's just grown over 30 plus years now.
It has. I've seen it. It has.
Mm.
It's really, it reached a tipping point at some. It just sort of, your name was thrown around a bit, and then a lot, and it was just sort of like, boom, you arrived. And
yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, and I'm trying to put my finger on when that really sort of felt like that happened, but I don't know. I think the key underlying that was that tenacious resolve to, and I always would communicate. People say, "Oh, so you're a coach." But inside, I never wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be the coach. And there's a difference.
There is a difference.
There's a conviction now I'm going to outwork, outstudy, do whatever it takes to be the number one coach in the world. I wouldn't say that I've achieved that, but look, I think the pursuit of that is what stimulated and held me to a high level of accountability to be congruent with what we teach.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Dorian. Yeah.
I was before that. I can hear you. It reminds me of that quote. I forget who it was. I think a few people have said it, but it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. And, and I think that resonates with your journey. Sorry, Cal, after you.
I'm just curious because we've got a lot of people out here in our community that are, coaches in their own businesses and probably at that baked bean phase of their business. And it's always really curious to me around that mindset, because I went through a similar period myself, and it felt like there was lots of things sort of crashing down around me. But I did have that resolve. What did you always know that you were going to break through? And was there a certainty even from the start that you were going to? And I guess what advice or what sort of thoughts can you talk to on that? If there's some people listening right now that are in that same position and are wanting to be the coach in their particular field and are wanting to break through, what is it that you could say for them?
Well, first things first, we talked about the suffering, and the reality is the suffering is the gift. What people have to understand is that, you have to have, when we talk about a tenacious resolve, you go until you achieve. And this is the key. This is the test to see whether or not you have what it takes to be a coach.
Yeah.
The one thing I harp on about is being congruent. And people say to me, oh, I'm struggling with my business, blah, blah. I would say you need to have a good look at yourself in the sense that, are you truly congruent with what you say?
Mm.
I think a lot of people today see, coaches, and they see there's a real opportunity to run your own business. You can make really good money, blah, blah, blah. And it's very romantic. You have to suffer if you truly want to be and receive the gift. And that means a lot of time under tension, a lot of refining, a lot of learning. As a practitioner, we never stop learning.
Mm.
And so to be congruent, you have to take and be responsible for the constant improvement of the self. Because what that does, that comes across when working with a client, I can hold them to account, and I can do that with absolute conviction because I've done it to myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that at a subconscious level holds them and motivates them to take action.
Yeah, it's that culture of continuous learning as well. I think what can
Yeah.
happen sometimes is after people get their certificate, they feel as though they've got some sort of sense of completion, and they should be able to just get the results with everyone all of the time. And also, there's another part to this, because we see a lot of really talented coaches and therapists out there, but they aren't necessarily as talented in the business world. So, they might be getting really good results with their clients, but aren't able to get more clients coming in.
Yeah.
And that's also an additional skill that one must, educate themselves on and become.
Yeah. There's an interesting point on this, because this is something that I think is interesting and possibly something we could discuss. But I'll tell you, in 30 plus years of coaching, I have never advertised.
Mm.
99% of my business is referral. So I would suggest to you, if you're struggling, it's not about your marketing. I would suggest is, are you doing a competent job as a coach? Because when you truly make change, people talk. When people talk, they refer. When they refer, I have never, ever had to advertise in 30 years.
Yeah,
Callum and I are very big on the long game. We say this to all of our Connect You community members, everyone we coach with. We are not the once and done.
Yeah.
We're absolutely rinse and repeat to become better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we are not into, as I said before, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
It's those 10 years that actually refines you so you can be
Yeah.
an overnight success.
Yeah.
So I think we're very aligned in that way. And our view is, if you're going to grow anything, do it right. And
Yeah, I think, like I said, I keep harping on, and I'll say it again. The most important thing is to be congruent. We get a lot of coaches, that, like I said, have you ever walked through the struggle? Have you ever suffered? Because especially in the world of high performance, and I think this is where you have to also have a stand fast conviction of understanding. I talk about in high performance, one of some of the virtues that we have to deal with. I want to encourage my clients to be selfish, because that's a certain requirement. You have to put yourself first if you want to be a high performance athlete, because it's a tough competition. It's a tough world. You can't be everyone's friend. You have to be selfish at times, and not be a yes man. Certainly, you need to blaze your own path. You have to have a stand fast conviction. and doing whatever it takes to become the best version of yourself. Now, again, it's in the concept and construct of the requirement, right? So if I'm dealing with an Israel Adesanya, you know, we're talking about someone who wants to be world champion.
Yeah.
That's as an individual, right? Now, yes, we have your support network around you, but ultimately, he has to make really good, clear decisions.
Mm.
And that, you know, you could go out and someone's invited you out to a party, whatever, but you have to make decisions that are congruent with what your goals and vision is. And so when you have that sense of clarity, I think it allows you to navigate. And people do perceive it as perhaps being a little bit selfish, but that's just the reality of the requirement in relation to the goal that you've set.
Mm.
Yeah,
I like what you said
mentioned-
about clarity. It's actually one of the things
Yeah.
I talk about a lot.
Well, absolutely.
Clarity, congruence,
Absolutely.
and certainty. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know, one of the things that we discussed, I remember one thing that I learned that I really enjoyed from hypnosis was now there was an American hypnotherapist that we studied, and his name will come to me in
Al
some stage.
Krasner? Al
No.
Krasner?
Milton Erickson,
No,
Dave Ellman,
no,
George
no,
Estabrook.
it'll come to me.
Esther Brooks?
No, but this guy had a formula which I absolutely love, and it was a formula for success. And it was BICE, belief plus imagination plus conviction plus expectation equals results.
Mhm.
Mm.
I have used that. That was the, you know, how you in the NLP you connect with some things and other things that you don't. For me, that just like, what a beautiful, simple, powerful formula that you can build your whole practice around almost.
Mm. Mm.
Fascinating. There's some
So what
great,
BICE?
great features out there, coaches.
So for those who are listening, it's belief plus
Imagination
imagination.
plus conviction plus expectation equals results. So when you have an undoubtable belief in yourself,
Yes.
when you can imagine and visualize that happening, when you have a conviction that reflects in your behavior and you expect to win, there's a high probability that the outcome's going to be in your favor. I mean, imagine you and I going into a fight, and if I have undoubtable belief in myself, I can see myself, I've visualized it, I have a conviction, and I expect to win. I'd say it's going to be a hell of a tough fight.
Yeah. No, we're on board with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to be competing at that high level, and
Charles
that's elite level-
Tibbets.
I've never heard of Charles Tibbets.
Charles Tibbets.
Charles Tibbets.
It's something that didn't make it.
Go look him up, people. Charles Tibbets. Oh, mate. What a wonderful, amazing guy. So these are the historical, you know, we talk about the Milton Ericksons and the Virginia Sauteurs. They were just genius. They were, and, you know, the richness that we've got from the history of NLP. You know, the one thing that I think every institution, every business, every school, every high school should be teaching everyone the principles of NLP, man.
Yeah.
If you truly love your children, you would put them through a practitioner course. I've put my kids through sessions with me, all about NLP.
Yeah. We would get a lot of educational leaders, headmasters, deans of schools come along and learn. And the hardest part was to actually to get into the schools.
I just don't understand it. You know, the curriculum that we have today is just, quite frankly, bullshit. You know, we're teaching people how to be weak. I want to teach young kids to be resilient, assertive, congruent, confident, and they have the ability to argue a point without screaming,
Yeah.
to be able to agree to disagree, to be able to debate with a level of intellect and eloquence.
Mhm.
NLP
Critical thought.
it should be on every schoolboard's objective to inject it into the curriculum.
Yeah, 100%. Being able to have that critical thought, being able to have that discernment, look at logical
Yeah.
fallacies,
Yes.
think through the different logical levels and lateral chunks, problem solving. I think all of that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring you back, Dave, just for a second on the mindset of a high performing athlete, because it really fascinates me. And that idea around being selfish, I feel really sings true to anybody who's wanting to do anything great, wanting to do anything excellent, wanting to do anything exceptional, wanting to be the outlier. There has to be a level of selfishness that's applied, a level of doing it for oneself, doing things for yourself to be able to achieve that. Because as human beings, we're social animals, and we care for the people around us, and often to the detriment of ourselves sometimes. So I was hoping you could speak to not just that point, but also to the mindset that one would have to adopt when they want to be that outlier, when they want to be the exception.
When you think about the two things that I talk about is you have to be selfish, and you can't be humble. There is a time to be humble, but sorry guys, but my language. So are we okay? Occasional swear,
All good.
Fuck being humble. If you really want to be a champion, you can't be humble. You need to be the opposite, right? And that
I heard
Yes.
I heard Israel accept an award, and he literally said those words. He accepted an award, and he said, "In New Zealand, we have tall poppy syndrome. We need to get it out of us."
Correct.
Because
Correct.
you can't be a leader, you can't be an inspiration, you can't be an elite athlete and feel bad because other people are going to see you and start taking you down. We need to support each other.
Because society wants to bring you down to their level. Think about this. The fundamental thing here is high performance. We are not fucking normal people. And so we cannot act like the herd. Nietzsche talked about this. We have a herd mentality. And the dragon represents society and its values and its beliefs. And the herd is, as Nietzsche explained it, like the camel. The camel says yes. And then you have to basically give the bird to the dragon and become a lion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I am very comfortable encouraging my clients to put themselves first. Now, here's an analogy. You're in a plane with a loved one, and the oxygen drops. What's the first thing they tell you to do?
Yeah, put the oxygen on yourself first and then help the others.
Because you can't help others when you're unconscious. So, I think we've got all the maths wrong. It's almost like we have to be of service. That is a byproduct after the achievement has been achieved. Israel's going out there and he's being very humble and he's doing a lot of work, blah, blah, blah. But you can't do that effectively until you've actually achieved the bloody goal first. That is to be world champion. And to go on that, you need to be narrow-minded. I talk about the fact that we talk about focus. It's in our biology. We're not a fucking cow. A cow has its eyes on the side of its head because it's worried about what's creeping up.
The predators, that's right. Yeah.
We talk about this. We talk about foveal. We are focused. We are predators. And today, society, we've softened that. And for me, working with high-performance athletes, it's laser focused. We are focused on a damn goal, and don't get in my way. And that's the conviction. That's making the choice going, you know what? I could go to a party to celebrate something that's very important to me, but I'm only 3 days or 3 weeks out from a camp. I'm going to say no.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I went to high school in New Zealand. I was at high school in New Zealand, and
Which one did you go to?
I went to Sacred Heart for third form to fifth
Right.
form, and then senior college opened up in town, and so I went there for the final
Yeah.
2 years. But the boys who I would hang out with, there was this one guy, James Arledge, who ended up playing for the Blues and ended up going to Japan. And I remember, and I'm a teenager, so we were drinking every weekend and whatnot. And I just remembered his dedication, because we would all be out. We would be six line reds deep. And it was, coming up to New Year's or summer holidays, and he would be stone sober. And I didn't understand it at that time. I didn't get it. I didn't understand why wouldn't you have a drink? It's a Saturday. And he's like, I'm preparing for rugby. And I, at that point in my life, I had not appreciated discipline. And I didn't understand that. But now, just what you were saying actually brought me back to that night when I was having that conversation with him, and I just didn't understand it. But that's exactly what it is.
I've got a story of what I went through on that. So I remember I couldn't afford a gym when I left school. I had a piece of shit car, and I managed to grab a couple of bars and weights. And I remember we talked about being with the herd and being an individual. So I'm sitting down, there's a whole lot of guys on the booze, and I'm training in the back of my car. And someone said to me, Dave, what are you doing, man? Come and sit down and have a beer. And I said, no, mate, I'm training. And they said, oh, come on, man, come and have a beer. And I've got all this. And I said, back off, I'm training. So some of the guys popped up and said, oh, what are you training for? And I said, one day I'm going to be the strongest man in the country. Well, they just cracked up, mate. And I had cans of beer coming over. I packed up my car and I left. And I never spoke to those guys again, ever.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. The 1996 New Zealand Strongest Man, the first event, I was leading the New Zealand Strongest Man. That night, one of those guys phoned me and said, bro, I just watched you on TV. We were mocking you, 6 years ago. You did it. Congratulations. I said, cheers, hang up. I don't want to talk to you. But, there's something about when you have a true conviction to something, you have to have that stand fast mentality. And ironically, my granddad's clan is from the Grant clan, and on my chest is tattooed the clan icon with "Stand fast" is the motto. Love it. Stand fast. You're going to be tempted through this world, and too many people are uncomfortable in saying no.
They are. Cal's got a similar story, I think, growing up in Yeppoon. Didn't you? You've mentioned it a few times, where you've had to, be clear with your intentions.
100%. 100%. I think environment is everything. And when I say environment, I don't just mean the physical environment that you're in. I mean the physical environment you put your body in, the physical environment that you are around in locality with other people. I knew when I was starting my career as a coach that Yeppoon wasn't the right place for me to be in. It's a beautiful place. I love it. I'm back here at the moment now for 12 months with my family. It's a great place to bring up kids when they're younger. But when I was a young man and getting into my coaching career and becoming a trainer, they just knew me as the runabout, run amok kind of party boy. And I was trying to rapidly change my life in a really short amount of time. My father had just passed away. I knew that it was my time to step up and start to take life a little bit more seriously, because I was now responsible for my life. I didn't have any fallback as I did before my father passed away. So I was making these big moves, and they were very uncomfortable ones, and there was a lot of suffering involved, as you mentioned before. And it meant that I had to, like that story that you just told, pull away from a lot of the environments that I was in and a lot of the behaviors that I was doing before that.
Yeah.
And I was mocked. I was ridiculed. People absolutely tore me down, especially for the NLP part of it. There was some horrible things that were said to me, and I've never spoken to those people again before. And that was a tough time for me, and it was a tough time mentally, but it did build resilience, and it did show me who my real friends were. And more importantly, I hadn't even met those real friends yet.
Totally.
I hadn't even run in those circles. So it also brought a lot of energy back to me as well. It brought a lot of energy in the way of like where I was investing my time and my energy, and redirected that back into, like you said, studying every day. I was working in a mining job, and we would work 4 weeks on and we'd have 1 week off.
Yeah.
At that point. And you know, even there, the guys were like, "Oh, what do you want to be? Some sort of Tony Robbins?" Just giving me hell because I was reading big books in the club room at lunchtime, and they were giving me a hard time. And yeah, it was like I was just dialed in. I knew that I was going to leave that place soon. Hey guys, Callum and Connor here from Connekt Coaching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Unplugged Podcast. We're jumping in to let you know about something really exciting, the Forever Client Matrix.
Absolutely. What we love doing is lighting people up and having them realize that their future is bright, and most importantly, making a difference in this world. So we are very excited to be able to share this with you.
If you want to turn every prospect into a forever client, then please click on the link below in the description and get instant access now to your preview of the Forever Client Matrix.
Enjoy.
It was just a matter of time. And I did everything that I could to reinvest the money I was earning at the time, to reinvest the time I was doing at the time into that one thing. And it didn't happen right away. And there was still a lot more struggles and suffering that happened after that. But, you know, people overestimate sometimes what they can get done in 1 year and underestimate what they can get done in 5 or 10. And that was certainly the case for me. You know, in 10 years from where I was to where I became, it was unrecognizable. I was training, you know, here in Australia, and also over the US. I had, you know, clients all around the world. And you know, I had a similar experience when people were actually messaging me and calling me and go, "Wow, you actually did it." So, you know, I think it's important what you were saying about not being humble, you know, not having that, being a little bit selfish. And that comes back to your boundaries, right? Enforcing and reinforcing your boundaries and making sure that other people respect them. But I also like the part that you said about, you know, making sure that the people that you're hanging around and as you enforce those boundaries, you get feedback on whether or not those people are good for you. So I think that's a really powerful message too.
I think that, you know, just resonates, you know, for me when, you know, saying that, because, you know, we know that one of the biggest influences of people's behavior is their environment. And I think you know, to reinforce this, it's very important. And that environment can actually apply to the people that you perceive that love you most.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes friends and family sometimes can be an area that needs to be addressed. You know, you can be, you know, you've got to be very careful who you hang out with.
It's the old crab in the bucket metaphor, in a way, where people will. The way, see, 20 years in the NLP industry, people would come along, do a training, they'd go back to their normal environment, and then all of a sudden, you know, 3 months later, they'd be sort of squashed back to the place where they were.
Pounded out of them.
And my analogy is that other people feel uncomfortable with them being different. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, you'll do whatever it takes to be comfortable again. So if you have a friend who's all of a sudden dreaming big and believes that they can do more in life, and you're not on their level, you'll, whether it's conscious or unconscious, you'll do what you can in order to bring them back down to your comfort level, so you don't feel uncomfortable. And people forget that, and you have a choice.
That's why you have to be selfish.
And you have a choice, and you can either allow yourself to be squashed back down into that piece of the comfort zone puzzle that belonged to someone else. You're the top right corner, and you don't fit in the top right corner anymore. So I need to then linguistic, bang you down until you fit back in that corner again.
Correct. Yeah.
Or you then have the choice to go off and
Well,
something else.
I've always said to my clients, there's a couple of key things. Number one, people say to me, what is it that I need to make change? Now, for anyone that's listening to this, I want to make this really clear, because this is 30 years plus of research, and I'm going to be real fucking blunt and honest, all right? So here's what you need if you truly want to make a change in your life. You need one thing, and that is 100 trillion cells. You've got everything you need right now to make change. There we go. That was the prerequisite. Everyone's got it. You can start counting now if you're a little want to debate me on how many cells you need. And I think that's really important. And then the next thing that I think is really important is there's a beautiful word that I use with my clients, and that is the word permission. And that is to give yourself permission to become the person you want. I think, as human beings, we are the most incredible projects we will ever work on. Now, I'm very much the existentialist. I don't have any sort of religious beliefs that there's an afterlife. I think what we have now is now. What I do know is we're thrown into this world. We don't get to choose our circumstances, but we do have the opportunity to make better choices moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at yourself in a way that you could challenge yourself, there's something beautiful in being honest. So when I work with a client, the first thing that I will ask them fundamentally will be, do you give me permission to be blunt and honest with you? Because I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass, right? There will be coaching sessions that will be very, very uncomfortable. And that is the gift. Now, if you're not prepared for that, I would suggest you go see someone else. And that's the other thing. As running a business, I am not in the business of getting the cash amount at the end of the session. I am absolutely committed to, I've got to really want to work with you as much as you want to work with me. I'm very selective who I work with. So the first initial consult, I'll push buttons, I'll challenge. And if I get the right response, I can work with them. If not, best you probably move on. Having said that, what we can also appreciate is that the first couple of sessions in themselves are possibly about teaching your clients how to use me more appropriately and effectively, because a lot of them come in, they've got no idea.
Unconsciously.
What is coaching? What does that mean? What is that like? I've got a picture of a teacher at school who's a nag, or another teacher who bores me, or a teacher that's cool. What's my frame of reference?
Mm-hmm.
So, teaching them, for instance, I expect my clients to come in with some level of agenda. We never go back to the premise, which was, you're the most incredible project you'll ever work on. So I'm not here to work out that for you. It's an investigation that I'm here to help you navigate through with effective questioning. But, you've got to, ultimately, it's up to the individual.
Yeah. Nice. And from that point, when you push the buttons, have you ever had someone say, Dave, I'm not ready for change. I'm not ready to.
Well, I've had
step into
people
my
where
magnificence."
let's just say they haven't said it, but as a coach, you sense it.
Yeah.
And that's when you got to do the right thing. Because you don't work with me, don't see it as a failure on my part, nor do you see it on a failure as your part. It's just that it wasn't quite right. Now, I know I have a style that's not everyone's cup of tea. And it's very rare that I have a client that I fire maybe once a decade, really. I've struggled to think of who I have. but I think that's also having and maintaining a certain level of ethical
There's
sort
ethics
of
there, but
mindset that you need to bring to the game. You know, I'm here. There could be someone else who's better suited for them, and it's always about getting the best for the client.
was it Andre Muller-Weitzenhofer, who was a famous hypnotherapist over the years, and he would say the hypnotherapist, the client will not actualize what the hypnotherapist does not believe to be true. So part of it would come down to or possible. Part of it would come down to your belief within them, I would assume, because
Yeah.
if you don't believe that you're going to get the results, they buy into your belief. They may not know why they're coming in, but they buy into your conviction of what they're capable of.
Yes.
And
There we go. And I think, you know, that's I think as a coach, like I said, you develop that level of sense over many clinical hours of coaching.
Yeah.
You know, you get to sense it very quickly. And believe me, I've had clients come in that were absolutely no way am I going. I've even had people basically come in and challenge me, like, you know, convince me. Here's a little story for you, because I can't be fucked with trying to convince people.
Yeah.
I had a lady come in who was a very high level real estate agent, very wealthy lady. And she comes in, she says, Dave, I've heard really good things about you, but you're going to have to be really good to convince me.
Yeah.
Now, she sat back with this arrogant, and look, here's the thing. I would say that most people would have handled it in a very appropriate way. But, you know, look, man, I'm a South Auckland boy. You know, I've had plenty of punch-ups and whatnot. I basically said, if that's your attitude, you can fuck off now. And I'll tell you something. She was very offended, and she fucked off. And about a week later, I got emails complaining to her about, you know, how unprofessional I was. I simply responded and said, really, maybe you should have a really good look at your attitude. What gives you the right to come in with that attitude? There was no way. And I think you maybe want to have a good look at yourself and the fact that, why were you so fearful when you came in to see me? Because, you know, we tend to attack things we fear. Interesting. I got an email going, oh, no one's ever talked to me so honestly before. Is there any chance we can reschedule? And what do you think I said?
No.
Fucking no. Well said, mate. No way. You don't have my respect. Therefore, I will never be effective as a coach for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, as we say, guys, perception is projection, eh? You know?
Tad would always say, you can't pay me enough to beat me up. And obviously he didn't mean physically, he just mean
but
you can't pay me enough to
I know, you know, just while we're, because you mentioned that, and I just want to maybe just take a moment to just acknowledge how lucky we all were to have some time with that man.
Oh yeah.
Well, I tell you, Tad, far out, man. Of all the coaches that I've had over the years, without a doubt, probably one of the most brilliant, intelligent guys I've ever worked with. What was really ironic when I went there and I did the training, here's an interesting story. So here I am as a printer, I'm on $6 an hour. When I went, so I'm struggling. So my wife actually sold a piece of furniture that she inherited to pay for me to go to Sydney. And so that we're clear, where the training was, the only place that I could afford was in King's Cross.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I couldn't even sleep because there was alarms, fire, police, beatings.
Loud.
You know, it was bloody awful. But I'm in the session, and I became befriended a man. I know you might remember him. I don't know. Do you remember a guy called Bernard who was from Switzerland? Had a beautiful man with a beard.
his second name begins with B as well, right? It's Bernard.
Yeah, and he was immaculately dressed. I mean, I remember I was thinking his watch could buy my house back in New Zealand.
Mm.
And here I am. So Bernard, I believe, was head of human resources for Standard Bank.
Okay. Standard Chartered.
Brilliant man. I don't know if he's still alive. I lost track of him over the years. But I remember he was sitting there. He had a 3-piece suit on, and I've got jeans and a T-shirt sitting next to each other. We were doing patterns together.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beautiful thing about it brings so many different people, cultures. It was brilliant, man. Brilliant. We went out. He took me out for lunch, and I remember we went somewhere very fancy. And all I remember was my mum said to me, now, if you go somewhere fancy, you work with the outside in. When you're
With the cutlery.
So I'm trying to not look like an idiot. Far out, mate. Bernard. There you go. Far out. What a brilliant man. I'm sure he would have been in his late 60s then. So whether or not he's still alive, because that was like 25 years. So who knows?
Yeah.
So
He
David,
may still be alive.
I've got some more questions around. You're talking about well-respected coaches, and you've mentioned Israel Adesanya, but Eugene Barman from City Kickboxing. You obviously work with Israel. Do you work with anyone else from that gym, or is it just mainly Israel?
My role over the last sort of 10 years, City Kickbox has evolved probably three times now, from their first little place, which was a very small gym, to they had to get a bigger, and now they've moved again to the new premises that's even bigger. So I've been running seminars. So basically, not everyone can afford to seminar. You got to appreciate we're in the fight game, mate. We're not talking about people that are generally from very wealthy backgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're tattooed, hardcore, off the street, beautiful people, right?
Yeah.
So I have been running the seminars for City Kickbox for probably the last decade plus. And in that sense, that with running the seminars, people get a lot of the content that they need and go away and they can use it. And then generally from that, it's more the elite guys that understand the fine tuning of the one-on-one coaching and can really sort of justify and appreciate that level of investment. You know what I mean? So yeah, so I work at a structural level, basically just giving these guys the emotional toolbox, so to speak, and then off they go. And then those that become more elitist, 9 times out of 10, they'll probably come in and see me and work on things. One of the things we worked on with Israel originally was, you're obviously, as a coach, you're monitoring everything. And he had, when this is 2016, Israel didn't even have a contract with UFC. He was still fighting in the One Asia, and he'd lost a fight or two, and he was just down. It was his coach,
I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. So his coach contacted me and said, "Hey, listen, mate, do you mind having a word to this young fella?" I said, "Yeah, okay." So we got into the session, and you just had general conversations. But what I noticed was he started talking about this Japanese anime stylebender, right? And so you're monitoring the physiology, and there was a sort of a negative physiology, and then he started talking, and there was a transition in his physiology.
Yeah.
And you make a mental note going, okay, there's something there that I can work on, because you're looking for the response. And I started challenging him deeper and deeper into this, to the point that I talked to him about becoming and developing that alter ego. Well, on the couch here was the Birth of Stylebender. Now, after that, and being clear on his vision, we started creating a real sense of identity as a world champion. So, here's a prime example of the representation of perception and words. I have a young guy, Kai France, who also I've worked with. So Kai came to me and I talked to him about how he identifies. He said, "Oh, mate, I'm a it's very proud of I'm a UFC fighter." I said, "Fantastic, mate. What's your goal?" Then he talked about his goal, and I said, "So your identity as a UFC fighter is not congruent with being flyweight champion of the world."
Yeah.
And it was like a eureka moment, because his whole, the subconscious mind will do just enough, right?
Yeah.
So he was constantly in the top 10. When we started getting clear on the vision and identifying as a world champion, everything started to change. His whole attention, his whole behavior, his language, everything. Now, what was beautiful is that Dan Hooker and Israel were being interviewed about Kai. And Dan said, "Fuck yeah, Kai's changed, eh?" And Israel went, "Yeah, he's been seeing Big Dave." That's what, they'll just call me Big Dave, and probably, I don't know, 6 months later, Kai's in the title fight.
Yeah.
And
With Marino, I think it was.
it was just this incredible change, because it's almost like, you guys, I'm talking to the converted here, but you have to take the mind there first, and the body will follow,
Well,
but when you get sensory specific with it, something that we teach in NLP is goal setting. We talk about being sensory specific. Far out, that itself is a gold mine of opportunity for change.
Yeah.
Fuck, why aren't we getting this in every bloody
the
school,
schools.
guys?
Crazy.
Yeah.
But there's something, it's like, as you said, there was a conviction. There was an undoubtable belief. That's the beautiful thing.
You can definitely see that in Israel, and you can definitely see that in Kai France. And I've also seen it with Dan Hooker as well.
Dan, yeah, absolutely.
Dan just had one of the most amazing fights I've ever seen him in UFC.
What did he say on the bench?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just incredible comeback.
Absolutely.
Back in the top 5. I think everybody had written him off after COVID. He had a couple of tough years there with COVID and working in his garage, getting ready for these big international fights in his garage, because New Zealand was locked down, and doing exceptionally well in those fights. But not, particularly the one with Dustin Poirier. I think that probably should have been his. But yeah, just incredible to see that comeback. It was all the guys from City Kickboxing at UFC 305 in Perth. And I was so stoked for all of them. Israel as well. He was performing well up until he wasn't. But
it's that environment that they've created at City Kickbox.
Yeah. And that's why everyone wants to be a part of it. Everyone wants to be there. Yeah.
There are very high levels of accountability. We know, they've done scientific experiments where you get a lethargic rat and put it into a cage of hyperactive rats. Very soon it'll become hyperactive, and vice versa. And I think, what Eugene and the other coaches have created there is it's pretty much right now the UFC mecca of the fight world.
Yeah. He's one of the best coaches in the world, without a doubt, for sure.
Yeah. Eugene's a very interesting guy.
I wanted to talk quickly, because you've done a lot of certificates, you've done a lot of modalities, you've learned a lot of stuff over that time of becoming a coach. Talk to us more, because I'm sure in that time you've created your own style, your own way of
Yeah.
doing things. And
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of people that are in our community that, they feel somewhat like they're stuck doing the same modalities, doing the same scripts, doing the same inductions, doing the same techniques. And they have this experience and they have this knowledge, but they haven't broken out into creating their own mechanism or creating their own technique or their own way of doing it. And it's almost like they need permission.
Permission. It's the P word. Yeah.
Well, I think that's it. It's giving yourself permission. But I think the other thing is, and we say this respectfully to the NLP, but I truly believe this. I believe in we need to follow the laws, but fuck the rules. I've always been very fiercely independent. So, I will use what I want to use. But the other thing is you kind of have to have a certain level of bravery to make mistakes, man. I mean, try shit out. It doesn't always come off. But, don't be, for God's sake, I think the biggest problem we have is people become one-dimensional with their coaching. Like the one thing you get there, the warning sign for me is, if someone said to me, right, turn to page 1, we're going to start there. It's like, fuck that. I have a style. I love a very free, organic style of coach. I have no idea where it's going to go. But once we get into it, there is a structure of action reflection. But no, you've got to challenge the rules. It's healthy. It's healthy to do that.
Yeah. Certainly is. So have you refined it in a way to? Is it like just Big Dave's approach? Is
yeah? I'll do a shameless plug. But
do
the
it.
books.
Yeah.
Hang on. I'll do a shameless plug.
There
you go. Can you see that?
Bring it up a little more. That's good.
In this, here's a prime example. This is something that I've sort of developed, and that's the passive, assertive, aggressive continuum, and the certain fundamental states of requirement for high performance. So there's a lot of things in there that you'll see underlying a very strong influence from NLP.
Yeah.
But like I said, the two things that you want to get in, first and foremost, when you get into this role, it's about gaining knowledge. The next step is then gaining experience. I don't know how many tens of thousands of hours. I could be a doctor 5 times over with clinical hours, you know what I mean? But the next phase beyond that is wisdom. And that is where you're free from worrying about being competent in patterns where, you can blend your own characteristics, your own little nuances that you've developed over a period of time that have actually evolved into being structural in your world as a coach.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting and exciting, man.
That's great. So you mentioned
you become creative.
The key states for what did you say? The key states for peak performance?
So the first one is knowledge. You need to get knowledge.
Yeah.
Then when you've got the knowledge, you need to have experience in utilizing that knowledge. But when you've done enough of that and get to a competent level, you go to a next phase of creativity and wisdom. And that's where, like for me, I will take bits and pieces that I like, that I can implement into what I think and deem to be appropriate for my coaching practice.
Yeah.
Now, there are times when I might walk through states. That works for me. As far as chaining, for instance, chaining on the knuckle, I don't do that. It's just not something that I like to do, and so I don't do it.
Don't do it. Sure.
You have a creative license to firstly respectfully understand. You cannot dump any NLP stuff until you've at least become competent in understanding it and the application of it. And then when you've earned that stripes, you can then start developing your own style, because you'll have a deeper understanding, because the basis of your knowledge is built on something solid.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, what is this all for?
Sorry. It's okay. Tell us more about the book, because I want to hear, like, who does this speak to? What are they going to get from it? Where is it going to take them? Tell us a little bit about that.
Here's what I would say. Look, one thing I'm not really into is plugging and telling you why you should be reading it. I would suggest to you that if you are curious, get it. You know, I'm not one to go, well, this is all the key points. Let's just say that in 30 years, from this little office, I've created Olympic champions, world number ones, winning teams, multimillionaires. I have clients around the world. If you feel that there's nothing in the book for you, then don't fucking buy it. But I would say if you're really fucking curious, you'd be buying it, man.
Beautiful.
Brilliant.
Get the damn book. I know where you live.
Where can
David,
they find it?
I feel we could.
Where can they find it? Where can they find
Okay,
the book?
good one. Yeah.
Well, I'm not too sure. I mean, in New Zealand, Wick calls them paper plus. In Australia, I'm not too sure, guys. I'm hoping.
Booktopia. Let me just double
Can you
check.
buy it? You can get it online. I mean, for God's sake, the cost of the book and what I charge an hour for a personal one-on-one, it's mate, you're getting 100% discount.
Just looking up on Booktopia now. I don't know if you want to jump
Look,
in.
for those who are interested, we'll pop a link. So what
Yeah,
happens?
if you can, you'll find it.
So David, David, and then Niethe.
Yeah,
You'll find the book, The Winning Mindset.
yeah.
30 years of elite level coaching in 150. How many pages?
About 270 pages.
So 30 years and 300 pages.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
good.
It's kind of depressing, isn't it? It's only 10 pages per decade. What the heck?
But it's small print. It's small print, Dave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look, look, people have asked me, look, I'll tell you this now. The one thing, this book is not academically orientated. This book is simple, right? I'm not trying to blow my trumpet because I know more than anyone else. I want it so that people can immediately go to any page, read it, and implement it into their life, and it will make a change.
Functional, actionable steps to impact your life.
Real simple, mate.
Yeah. Awesome.
Booktopia in Australia, and Amazon in Australia, but also Amazon all around the world as well.
There you go. Go get it. Yeah.
Brilliant. This is good. Hey, Dave, you know what I really appreciate is that you're unapologetically yourself. And
Yeah.
I think it's refreshing.
Yeah, well, it's freedom, mate.
Yeah.
It is freedom. I agree with that 100%. 100%. Yeah, this has been awesome. I'd love to have you back sometime. We've touched on so many amazing points.
I feel like we say this every we just touch the surface, you know.
You'll probably get a whole lot of feedback. Hey, listen, more than happy, guys. I love spending time with you, and who knows, even in some simple way, a couple of people are listening that pick up an NLP book, or ideally my book, or reach out and find a coach. God, you can make a difference, man.
Yeah, absolutely. What
Maybe we do the next one in New Zealand. Connor and I are both over there regularly. My wife's family lives in.
Hey, we'll set it up in my office, because I tell you, my office is majestic. It is something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I pop over to NZ once a year or so. Cal pops over once or twice a year. We just need to make sure that they overlap.
Yep. Well, we'll make it work. Okay, guys.
Amazing. David, stay on. I'm going to end the Facebook Live. We'll
Yep.
wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. Thank
Thanks,
you,
David.
Cal. Thank you, David.
See you
Bye.
guys.
Hey guys, Callum and Connor here from Connekt Coaching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Unplugged Podcast. We're jumping in to let you know about something really exciting. If you are a practitioner, a coach, or a trainer in the alternative therapy modality space, the Forever Client Matrix is something that we've modeled in the last 30 combined years, both Connor and my experience. And we've turned it into a 2-day intensive, and we want to give you a preview of that, the Forever Client Matrix.
Absolutely.
We want to make the bar for them to enter into that program very, very low and have them get incredible results.
I've sold about $40 million worth, and together we've sold about $100 million worth with our teams.
That's right. We believe that trust and reliability is the currency of the future. So if you want to turn every transaction to a transformational experience, if you want to turn every prospect into a forever client, then please click on the link below in the description and get instant access now to your preview of the Forever Client Matrix.
Enjoy.